You are now tuned in to the Storm Tracker podcast.
Welcome back to the Storm Tracker podcast. I'm Marcus Benjamin, representing for CanesCounty.com, part of the Rivals.com network. Make sure you subscribe to the website, CanesCounty.com, for free. Use the promo code Miami30. Also, subscribe to this podcast on all platforms, as well as this YouTube channel, live from Canes County. It's a Blue Monday, so I've got Larry Blustein joining me, legendary South Florida reporter. We're going to talk a little Miami Hurricanes football this morning. Larry, thanks for joining me.
Anytime, Marcus. It's not really a Blue Monday, thank goodness, because some good things happen on Saturday in Gainesville.
Absolutely. That's an understatement for this team and what we saw in the Swamp. I had the pleasure of being there. It was my first time in the Swamp. It was a memorable experience, to say the least. The crowd was electric for maybe a quarter or so.
Yeah, right.
Until Miami just kind of really got going here. 41-17 was the final score. I wrote yesterday in my 5 takeaways that this game was similar to the 41-16 game in 2002, where Miami kind of dominated in the Swamp. So, you know, we'll kind of get to whether this team is on its way back. But Larry, just you saw the game. What were your first thoughts after this game went final?
Yeah, Cam Ward's pretty damn special. You know, he did some things that, you know, I mean, that you as a coach, you go, don't do that. Okay, nice job. You know, throwing sidearm, throwing off his back feet, jogging out of bounds. But I'll tell you what, and the thing that was great is and I think all young quarterbacks need to watch what he does. He scours the whole field. So it's just not, you know, it's just not his first read or his second read. He'll go sometimes to his third read, like he actually did to McCormick for the touchdown. You know, I mean, he wasn't the primary guy. You know, there were 2 other guys that he looked off on in the defensive line, which is like, wow. And this is without Bain mostly the whole game. And, you know, you had a lot of, you know, all those guys that came in like Barron and Alston and, yeah, and the front 7, Kiko Mawanoa, and everybody was making a play. And you know, the position that everybody kind of like screamed at, defensive secondary, I think they stepped up pretty good. You know, they made some really good plays, and obviously that was due to the way the front 7 was putting pressure on Mertz the whole, you know, for 3 quarters. And you know, I mean, you know, there was nothing not to be pleased about. The offensive line blocked well, the receivers, he went to everybody from Horton to Xavier Restrepo. You know, his tight ends, finally, we were screaming the last couple of years, you and I in the press box, you got to go to Will Mallory. You got to use this guy. But he did. You know, he got all the tight ends involved. Mark Fletcher looks healthy again, thank goodness. I mean, I think Martinez is nice. And I think he's a great addition, but I think Mark Fletcher is a cut above. And people, you know, we watched him, Marcus, for 4 years in high school, and he never disappointed there. And I think he's only going to get better and better. And the fact that Miami's got depth at the position, you know, they didn't even insert somebody like Johnson, and Lyle's got a lot of Lyle from St. Thomas got a lot of carries. So. Yeah, there was nothing not to like. It was a complete performance. And the thing is people probably haven't even mentioned, you know, the Miami only had 2 penalties in the game. I mean, that's crazy. Right. Yeah, that's the one part of the game. You look at the game, and last year, if you remember, Miami had all those crucial penalties, whether it be holding or personal fouls. And yeah, you know what? It was, if you put a blueprint towards a game and said, listen, this is we got to play. It was it, you know, the one long run, you know, by Florida. And I mean, he's a great back anyway, you put it, but he shouldn't, you know, that's something Miami not, you know, let him get 20, 30 yards, but can't go to distance, you know, but like I said, he's one of those type of backs, and Miami's going to face a few this year. But yeah, and the irony of it is now they play Florida A&M, and Florida A&M is the #1 team in the HBCU, and certainly I don't expect them to win, but it's funny how all these other programs get Furman and Arkansas A&I and Miami's little breather this coming week at home, and their home opener is going to be a team that's going to draw some people. So it's going to be,
Sure.
It's going to be great for their home opener. A lot of people are I think it's going to be a good crowd, because I think a lot of people want to see this Miami team, after watching them last week. And everything's all the things that Mario Cristobal promised 2-3 years ago when he took over are starting to come to fruition. And I think that's the big thing, because, everybody, as I said, the Mark Ricks and everybody who's been there over the years, Manny Diaz, come in there with all the bells and whistles flying, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And we just got the best quarterback and we got the best. And as a Hurricane fan, you got to say, you know what, you were kind of a little gun shy coming into this year, and rightfully so. I mean, obviously they picked up all those kids, but the one thing too is you got to have a chemistry, and everybody can be an individual, because all those guys are coming in from places where they were the big guy, where they were and I think that if anything, everybody overlooks at the fact that they've been able to put this group of all-stars, quote unquote, together and make them a team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit a lot of points on the head here. The depth really kind of stood out to me, especially with Ruben Bain going down. You had a couple other guys go down with injury,
right?
Ahmad Moten, Damari Brown, and this team really didn't miss a beat at all. And you didn't really see in previous years where if there was an injury, you kind of felt it. Right. You didn't feel it at all in this game. And I think it really talks to just what Mario Cristobal has been building in these past couple of years when it comes to recruiting and the transfer portal, and then penalties. Yeah. The fact that they went into the swamp and no false start penalties. I mean, that's pretty. Yeah. That's pretty big, and so it goes to show you just how disciplined this team is, led by the coaching staff and Cam Ward. So when you watch the game, I think the score might be surprising to kind of most. The fact that it was a 41-17 game, I think most kind of expected. Even Vegas thought this would be a field goal game. What surprised? What surprised you about this game?
Actually, the way Miami came out and, took control and used all the, they used that talent, I mean, and I think what happened was, to be honest with you, and I think you and I discussed this a couple of months ago, the place where Miami really has gotten stronger is on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And that's where games are won and lost. And if you look at, I think that a couple of plays, Cam Ward went back in the pocket. He could have read War and Peace. I mean, he really wasn't touched. And a couple of years ago when I was talking to somebody about this the other day, that Miami's offensive line was getting pushed back 5 yards into the running back. And that was really a point where you said, wow, we'll never win until we get that fortress up front. And they have. I mean, Rivers, Mawanoa, Okunlolo, all these guys that they've come in with a lot of promise are starting to fulfill what everybody talked about. And great coaching when your head coach is an offensive line guy, and then you have somebody like Alex Mirabal. I think that's still the strongest point, because it makes that offense go. It gives those tight ends and guys like Restrepo a little bit more leeway to get out on their patterns, and not have to rush things out. And plus, you have a quarterback who's mobile, who can extend plays that way. So, I think that's the thing that stood out to me. We knew that the secondary was not young, but inexperienced in playing together. You still had guys back there. I thought Damari Brown, as you said, he got hurt, but he played extremely well. Florida's passing game was never an impact, in the game. Yeah, Mertz, you got to say, Mertz was the type of quarterback. He had a, 75% completion last year. He threw 26 touchdowns. They only got picked 3 times. So obviously that was the difference. The line of scrimmage on both sides for Miami, and they control. That's how they control the game, and that's that's what Alabama does. That's what Georgia does. That's what Ohio State does. And Miami's now, not to say they're at that level, but they're slowly getting there.
Yeah. Miami did not allow a pass over 20 yards the entire game. So it really says a lot about the secondary, the pass rush, just a really impressive performance by this defense and this team overall. But let's talk about this quarterback, Blue. Cam Ward was absolutely outstanding in this game. He was just fun to watch. If you're a football fan, just, generally, just the way that he bought time and just kept the play alive. He kept drives alive by running, albeit casually out of bounds at times.
Yeah, that scares me a little bit, because somebody's going to want to take a shot at him and take the 15-yard penalty, and he may be out, and you don't want that to happen, and I'm sure they're going to address that, and say, hey, listen, if you're going to get out of bounds, get out of bounds. Don't dance your way out, because when you're in bounds and somebody is, you could still get hit. So, yeah, and you're 100% right. His ability, as I said earlier, to scour the field and to understand, he had the one pick and he blamed himself a little bit for that. He says that he didn't read it right. But look at all the plays he made. He combined a lot of quarterbacks that Miami's had in the past. Looked a little bit like Bertie Kosar with those sidearm, deliveries. And he reminds me, as I said, when you're a kid and you play street football, go over to the taillight of the Volvo and I'll throw it over there. And that's what it looked like, because he had so much time, and that's due to the offensive line, but his ability to read and scramble. If that happens in every game, Miami's going to be tough to stop.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. This quarterback gives Miami a chance in every game, and basically against anybody. I think his ability to just extend plays, extend drives, make plays with his legs, keep his eyes downfield. And these receivers are out there getting open. Xavier had another outstanding day.
Always, he's automatic.
Yeah, it's like routine now. I think we're getting spoiled with it now. But Jacoby George, Isaiah Horton had some great plays as well. Elijah Arroyo had some nice catches over the middle. I think this team overall is just – it's dangerous. It's a dangerous team basically on every level. And the fact that this offensive line was able to kind of hold up while Ward is scrambling out there for 15, 16 seconds, it feels like. Without a penalty. Right, exactly. Says a lot about just how this offensive line has grown over the years. So credit to Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal. Cam Ward now is the fourth highest odds when it comes to Heisman chances at this point, behind Carson Beck, Dylan Gabriel, and Jackson Dart. And if he keeps playing like this, Blue, I think he has a really good chance to get that trip to New York. And when's the last time that there was a Miami Hurricane in New York? I think that was
long time.
Right. Well, it's Gagey, I believe, and Ken Dorsey. I think those were the last.
Yeah, time. Dorsey. Yeah, you're right. It's been a couple of generations. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really excited to see kind of what Cam Ward does for the rest of the season. 26 for 35 on Saturday, 3 touchdowns, only sacked once. So we'll see just kind of what he does for the rest of the season. Interesting comments. I don't think you heard. I don't know if you heard about him with the crowd noise. He was crediting. I know you're a big Pac-12 guy, or what was the Pac-12 guy, but he credited USC as being a loud crowd, credited Oregon and Washington as being louder crowds than the Swamp. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Well, he also said that it was louder in practice than it was in the game because they had the speakers right near his ears, he said. So it was a lot louder. And but this was your first visit to the Swamp. I've been there a number of times, and I've been there when Florida was, the Tebow era and all that, when they were playing on all cylinders. And sometimes it's tough for you to think, when you have a crowd with that decibel. And, and I know the Miami Notre Dame game back in the 80s, that was one of those games where you couldn't hear yourself think. And that's crazy, but yeah. So, and that was the big thing. Everybody but you know what? That's only natural, especially for a Hurricane fan, Marcus, when you go 20-something years without really being a significant, player in the national championship, picture, and everybody throwing out these promises to you, and we got this, we got that. So it was a little bit of skepticism, because everybody wanted to kind of, the Hurricane fans, the average Hurricane fan, oh, we're going to kill him. But that was just fan talk. If you went to reality, you had to really see. And I was, I took a lot of heat because I picked Florida to win, only because of the basis that I hadn't watched Miami play anybody. I saw them plenty during the spring. I saw their scrimmages. But to me, until as they say, till the bullets are flying live, you don't really know what's going to happen. But they came out of that game, and I'll be honest with you, they'll be favored in every single game the rest of the way this year. Now, Louisville will have to see, up there, but I think that every game that they play in, Virginia Tech, Florida State, that they're going to be favorites, and they should be, especially off of that game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Miami fan base needs to get a little credit as well. I was in the stadium, and I heard them loud and clear. and they were, and most of the fans were on the opposite side of the stadium. So
right.
So it'll be interesting to see how big this crowd is for this FAMU game.
Yeah.
It being the home opener, I think this fan base is super excited to see what they can do in person and for the rest of the season. I agree with you. I think they will be favored for the rest of the season. If you've following myself on CanesCounty.com, I did a preview of every game of the season. That Louisville game is the one game that I actually said that they would lose.
Sticking point. Yeah, no, you're right. But at the beginning, I thought Florida and that game, Louisville, and then I said, they'll be 9-2 going in the last game, and playing at Syracuse has never been easy for them. So, but you know what? You go in there and you play like this anywhere. I mean, like you said, you look at Florida Field, and it's one of the top places in the country to play against an SEC opponent. So I thought Miami's win was by far the most impressive of anybody in college football. I mean, USC beat a pretty good LSU team, but that was at a neutral site, and and USC probably had as many fans. But other than that, I don't see a team that really stepped up. I mean, Georgia playing Clemson in basically Georgia's backyard,
right.
But I think that was by far on week one the most impressive win that you could have on the road against a rival, at an SEC team, and you can't take that lightly. Look at Virginia Tech; they lost to a SEC team too, and Vanderbilt. So, nothing you could say. You can't take anything lightly anymore, and obviously that was a huge win. And to top things off, at the end of the game, Miami players were going around the Florida recruits that were there and trying to tell them, listen, you're making a mistake. This is the place to be. I like that.
Yeah, I like to see that too. It definitely feels like the swagger is back.
Yeah.
With the University of Miami football team, based on what you saw on the field and what you saw afterwards as well. It was definitely a sight to see in person. So we talked a little of Cam Ward, and he's the obvious MVP of this team, Blue. But when you look up and down of the roster, and based on what you saw on Saturday in the Swamp, who is a player that Miami can ill afford to lose to injury just based on what you saw?
Anybody up front. You don't want to lose a first-team offensive lineman. You really don't, because it's taken them a while to be this good. And I think if you lose, a Mauano, or you lose like somebody like a Rivers, it can put a dent into the team. And, I think people are not making enough of the fact that this offensive line has a really, really good chance to be special. And think about in the preparation over the last couple of weeks, they had to go against that defensive line. And that defensive line is, I mean, with that Barrow and like I said, Alston and Barron, you know, I mean, Simeon Barrow, you know, was getting double teamed at someplace. And like I said, this is without, and you look at Messidor and guys, it's a deep defensive line, you know, it really is. And that linebacking core, which kind of took a bath over the last couple of years, you know, I mean, so, well, and Dave, you got some new faces at linebacker too. So on the offensive side of the ball, you know what? You don't ever want to lose Xavier Restrepo. If he plays like this, game 8, he'll become the all-time leading receiver at the University of Miami. And when you look back and see the Michael Irvins and Andre Johnsons and things like that, and, you know, that's amazing. That's just amazing that somebody who everybody talked about, you know, oh, he's too short, he's too slow, he's not a, you know, he's not a power 4-5 type of kid. And I think he shoved it up everybody's butt, you know, showing them, hey, you know what? And even the announcers, they said he's one of the best in the country, Yeah. You know, that's pretty high praise for a guy that everybody said, oh, he's not good enough to play at this level. And, you know, I think he's really a catalyst. You know, he's always that look-to guy. He opens things up for everybody because now he's getting, you know, he's getting corner play, he's getting safety coverage, he's getting everything, and that's leaving Jacoby George open or the line. See, this is what you're going to see more and more of, and probably not this week, over the next couple of weeks, but maybe when they go to USF or when they, you know, they play against, you know, Virginia Tech, you're going to see those tight ends really get into the play. And then as a defensive coordinator, you say to yourself, whoa, I can't stop the run, can't stop the receivers. Now they're throwing the tight ends at us. So, yeah, there's so many positives to come out that, you know, it's been a long time since Miami fans could be talking this way. You know, they've won in the past, but when you've 12-13 over the last 2 years, you know, anything positive. And I think this is something that not only was heard here and throughout the state, but the entire country was talking about Cam Ward and this football team all Saturday and into yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this team has a lot of valuable players on it. X definitely being one of them. That offensive line. I mean, you can go up and down that line.
Sure.
To really kind of talk about, you know, who's the most valuable on the team. And S. Cooper's probably the most vocal, so you could say him. Zach Carpenter actually had a decent game as well. And according to Pro Football Focus, Francis Mauigoa had the best game. So it's definitely a great problem to have a lot of different players that you need for this entire 2024 season. But for me, 2 players kind of stood out to me from this game as like valuable. One being the safety, Mish Powell, man. The fact that, you know, you lose a Cameron Kinchens, who was kind of the obvious leader of this team last year. And it seemed like he was going to be very hard to replace, but Miami hit on Mish Powell for sure, getting him out of the transfer portal out of Washington. Very confident kid. He has that playoff experience already, and you can kind of tell the fact that he got an interception in this game. So he not only you kind of feel his leadership kind of permeate through this team, but he made a big play. He probably should have took it all the way to the house, but you know, it was a great play nonetheless. To get an interception, how he did. So I think this guy is really, really valuable for this team. And when Ruben Bain kind of went down in this game, I think there was a lot of, you know, worry, just for him as a kid, and just hoping that he could just return at some point in the game. You kind of wanted him to return, of course, and hopefully he returns soon from his injury.
Yeah.
This defensive line didn't miss a beat, Blue, and the player that stood out to me was Tyler Barron.
Oh, Barron, yeah.
Yeah, Barron, to me, I think he really showed just why he was so coveted coming out of the transfer portal. I think he provided pressure in key moments here, and he got a sack. He also had 2 tackles for loss. as well. And I think he, just overall, he just adds tremendous depth to this team coming off the edge. Him and Elijah Alston, I think, are gems of gets out of the transfer portal, and they jumped off the field to me when I was watching this game. So shout out to those guys. Shout out to the defensive line and the defensive line coaches, Jason Taylor and Joe Salavea, for recruiting these guys, coaching these guys up, and having them ready to play in the swamp on Saturday. Last, before I let you go, Blue, I wanted to ask about, just a player to watch for the rest of this season. There were some interesting, I guess, plays as far as players that played in the game. We saw OJ Frederick get the start in this game. And then we also saw Jordan Lyle, who got more carries than the veteran AJ Allen in this game. Chris Johnson and Chris Wheatley Humphrey, other running backs in the room, didn't get a carry. So, it's obvious how they feel about the freshman Jordan Lyle and OJ Frederick. Jalen Alderman also, got some play as well. When you look up and down this roster, what player should Hurricanes fans really kind of be looking out for the rest of the season to make plays?
Well, we talked about, obviously on offense, you got the Restrepos, but I think that you mentioned a good point. I think Arroyo is a guy that could really get off. He's got if you look at him, when he's healthy, and I believe he's healthy now, he's an NFL prototype guy. He's got size. He's got speed. He can catch the ball. He'll make it pay. So I think that he's a guy that I'm going to watch the rest of the year, only because, as I said, you and I over the last couple of years sat in the press box and screamed, hey, you know what? Let's use the tight ends. They're open, So I don't think we had – and now people are coming to see what a great job that Dawson is doing as an offensive coordinator, because he really didn't have all the pieces last year. Now he has those pieces. Same thing with Guidry on the defensive side. It must be pretty easy to call something when you've got a front four like that, or, it's or a linebacking core. So, yeah, now people are seeing what like Mario saw when he hired them as coordinators. We were looking last year and it wasn't, kind of a complete team. But, I look back over the last 2 years, and I keep always repeating this, but roster wise, they have 62 new faces over the last 2 years. So, it shows you. I think Colorado had 80, but even Nick Saban said you could spend all the money in the world, but if you don't spend them on the right players, and I agree with that statement. You could get somebody and pay him $2-3 million, but if he's not the right fit for the team, so to me, money spent on Cam Ward was really, that's why everybody wanted him, because he's one of those guys. You were seeing what's happening, a little bit of struggle after the first game with Georgia Tech, that DJU may not be the guy that Florida State really can win games with. We'll find out a lot tonight, as well as when they play Boston College. But yeah, you have to strike gold when you're spending that much money and you're going into the, the NIL deals and striking up all these things, especially as you mentioned with Alex Barron and guys like, or with Barron and some of the other defensive linemen, Stinson, Barrow, and these guys like that. You spend a lot of money on these guys. You spend a lot of money on a lot of these, even with Martinez. So I just think that, Florida was more geared to stop that inside run. Miami's running. Miami hasn't, they don't really, I don't know yet if they have that guy could take it 75, 80 yards. I think maybe Lyle could, Chris Johnson, if he's given the opportunity. What they have now are backs that are going to get you those 15, 20 yards and those with, as we mentioned, but we'll see, time will tell. They're going to need I don't know if they're going to ever really need that, because when you have a mobile quarterback like that, that adds that dimension where it's like another running back. And so he's a guy, when he's on the move, you got to pay attention to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Ward averaged 11 yards per carry.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Averaging a first down every time he tucks it and runs.
Yeah.
Larry Blustein joining me again from, as a Blue Monday and not a Blue Monday at all. It's a very happy Monday for the Miami Hurricanes. Kind enough to join me here on the Storm Tracker podcast. Thanks for joining me once again, Blue, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks to talk a little bit more Miami Hurricanes football.
No doubt. 6 o'clock. We'll see you on Saturday, front and center.
Absolutely. Excited to see them against the alma mater for me, but we'll see what they do out there and if they can put some points on the board at Hard Rock Stadium. That's going to wrap it up for the Storm Tracker podcast. Make sure you follow this podcast on all platforms. Also, make sure you follow, subscribe, share, like to this YouTube channel live from Canes County. Most importantly, subscribe to the website, canescounty.com for free. Use the promo code Miami30. Until the next episode.